The massive crystal dome of the Galactic Council building sparkled against the purple sky of Nexus Station. Inside, hundreds of alien delegates from across the galaxy had gathered for what many considered a routine trade meeting. The air buzzed, with different languages, clicking sounds, and electronic translations as representatives from dozens of species discussed the new deep space trade routes. Ambassador David Reed sat quietly at the small human table, a thick folder of documents beside him. His gray hair was neatly combed, and his simple blue uniform stood out among the elaborate robes and armor worn by other delegates. He had been preparing for this moment for months, carefully organizing Earth's proposed safety protocols based on centuries of human experience. The Krallen delegation dominated the center of the room. These 7-foot-tall warriors wore gleaming metal armor and carried ceremonial weapons that hummed with energy. Their leader, General Brutok, had scars across his face from countless battles. The Krallens had conquered half their galaxy through pure military might and considered themselves the strongest race in known space. Near the front sat the Vorthak scientists, beings with enlarged heads and multiple eyes that could see across different light spectrums. They had developed faster-than-light travel 3,000 years before humans discovered fire. Dr. Quantum, their chief representative, had written dozens of papers on galactic physics that other species still struggled to understand. The Hexari. Traders filled an entire section with their golden robes and jeweled accessories. These merchant princes had built the largest commercial network in the galaxy. Their trade minister Ross controlled shipping routes that connected over 200 worlds. Profit margins and efficiency ratings were their primary language. When David's turn came to speak, he walked to the center podium with his folder. The room gradually quieted as translation devices activated. He cleared his throat and began reading from his carefully prepared speech. Honored delegates, Earth wishes to contribute our safety protocols for the new intersystem trade route. These regulations have been developed over centuries of space travel and represent lessons learned from many difficult experiences. A low rumble of laughter started from the Krallen section. General Brutok leaned back in his chair with obvious amusement. The sound spread to other delegations as David continued. We recommend mandatory backup life support systems on all vessels. Every ship should carry emergency supplies for twice the planned journey length. All cargo from unknown worlds must undergo 14-day quarantine periods before transfer. Dr. Quantum's multiple eyes blinked in what his species considered polite disagreement. Ambassador Reed, such excessive precautions suggest a fundamental misunderstanding of risk assessment. Our calculations show these measures would reduce efficiency by 63%. David nodded respectfully. Doctor, we understand the efficiency concerns. However, human history shows that space travel involves many unexpected dangers. Our protocols exist because we have learned from past mistakes. Trade Minister Ross stood up, his golden robes shimmering under the dome lights. Ambassador, with respect, your species has been in space for barely 2 centuries. The Hexari have maintained profitable trade routes for over 5,000 years. We have perfected the art of efficient commerce. More laughter filled the room. David waited patiently for it to die down before continuing. We also recommend complete environmental suits during all station transfers, regardless of atmospheric compatibility readings. Emergency evacuation procedures should be established for every facility. Unknown biological materials require isolation protocols, even if initial scans show no obvious threats. General Brutok stood to his full intimidating height. Human, these suggestions insult the courage of true warriors. My soldiers do not hide behind extra armor when facing the unknown. Fear is a weakness that strong races must overcome. The Vorthak delegate, Dr. Quantum, activated a holographic display showing complex mathematical formulas. Our risk analysis indicates that the probability of catastrophic failure using standard galactic protocols is only 0.003%. Your proposals address statistical impossibilities. David opened his folder and pulled out historical records. Delegates, I have brought documentation of human space disasters. The explosion of the Mars colony transport in 2387 killed 300 people because backup life support failed. The contamination of Luna Station in 2401 happened because we rushed quarantine procedures. The loss of the Deep Space Explorer ship Pioneer happened because we underestimated the dangers of unknown energy fields. Trade Minister Ross waved dismissively. Ambassador, your species' history of accidents proves our point. Humans are clearly prone to errors that more advanced races have learned to avoid. Our technology and experience make such primitive fears unnecessary. The room filled with agreement sounds from dozens of different species. Clicking, humming, and electronic beeps all conveyed the same message. The assembled delegates found human caution both amusing and unnecessary. Dr. Quantum projected new calculations. Logic dictates that excessive safety measures create their own risks. Slow response times, reduced flexibility, and economic inefficiency pose greater threats than the unlikely dangers your protocols address. David looked around the room at hundreds of alien faces, showing various expressions of dismissal and condescension. He had expected this reaction, but still felt disappointed. I understand your positions. However, I must emphasize that these protocols saved human lives in real situations. They are not theoretical concerns. General Brutok laughed loudly. Human, your species survived this long only through excessive fear. True strength comes from facing danger boldly. Kralin warriors have conquered entire star systems without hiding behind layers of unnecessary protection. The vote was called soon after. Delegate after delegate stood to reject human safety protocols. The Kralins voted for warriors' courage over cowards' caution. The Vorthak chose scientific logic over primitive fear. The Hexari selected commercial efficiency over profit-destroying delays. When the final count was announced, Earth-Sci proposals had received exactly one vote. David's own. Trade Minister Ross approached the human ambassador after the session ended. No hard feelings, Ambassador Reed. Your species simply needs more time to develop proper confidence. Perhaps in a few thousand years, humans will understand that the galaxy is not as dangerous as you imagine. David packed his rejected documents back into the folder. Minister Ross, I hope you are right. I truly hope our experience proves unnecessary. As the delegates filed out to celebrate their streamlined new trade regulations, David remained in his seat. He pulled out a small device and began recording his report back to Earth Command. The new intersystem trade route would operate without human safety protocols. Time would tell whether the galaxy's advanced civilizations were as wise as they believed themselves to be. 6 months after the council vote, the Meridian Hub bustled with activity like never before. The massive space station served as the central point for the new intersystem trade route, and alien ships arrived and departed every few minutes. Sleek, Vorthak science vessels gleamed like silver needles as they docked alongside bulky Kralin military transports. Golden Hexari merchant ships sparkled with precious metals as they unloaded cargo from distant worlds. Station Master Wilson of the Hexari Commercial Authority stood on the main observation deck, watching the constant flow of traffic through floor-to-ceiling windows. His jeweled robes caught the light from passing ships as he reviewed profit reports on his personal display. The numbers looked better each day. Travel times had decreased by 40% since abandoning human protocols. Loading and unloading. Procedures that once took hours now finished in minutes. Below in the docking bays, alien crews worked with impressive speed and coordination. Kralin warriors lifted massive cargo containers without bothering with safety harnesses or protective equipment. Their natural strength made human lifting procedures seem laughably unnecessary. Vorthak technicians used their multiple eyes to scan cargo manifests in seconds, completing inspections that humans would take hours to finish properly. The human freighter Resilient waited in Docking Bay 94, looking oddly bulky compared to the streamlined alien vessels around it. Captain Tom Evans supervised his crew as they slowly worked through their standard procedures. Every crew member wore full environmental suits despite the station's breathable atmosphere. They carefully scanned each cargo container with multiple, different devices, documenting everything in detailed reports. Wilson had watched the human operations many times and found them endlessly amusing. Where other ships completed docking procedures in 20 minutes, the Resilient took 3 hours. The humans insisted on testing the station's air quality, even though automated systems already confirmed it was safe. They checked and double-checked every seal, every connection, every piece of equipment. "Look at them," Wilson said to his Vorthak assistant, Dr. Logic. "Still acting like the universe is trying to kill them." Dr. Logic's 4 eyes focused on the human ship below. Their behavior demonstrates primitive evolutionary responses, fear-based survival instincts that advanced species have learned to control through rational thinking. As they watched, a sleek Krallen battlecruiser called Victory's Edge swept into the docking bay next to the human ship. The massive vessel settled into place with military precision. Within minutes, armored Krallen warriors emerged and began unloading their cargo. They moved with practiced efficiency, ignoring safety procedures that they considered beneath their warrior status. Captain Rex, the Krallen commander, noticed the humans in their bulky suits and laughed loudly. "Still hiding in your shells, humans? A true warrior faces the universe with courage, not fear." Tom Evans looked up from his scanning device. "Captain, Rex, we are simply following standard safety protocols. These procedures have saved human lives many times." "Saved lives by avoiding imaginary dangers?" Rex replied. "Krallens have traveled these routes for months without incident. Perhaps humans are just naturally weak." Other alien crews gathering in the docking bay joined in the laughter. A group of Hexari merchants pointed at the humans' slow, methodical cargo handling. Vorthak scientists shook their enlarged heads at what they saw as unnecessary inefficiency. Dr. Logic activated his personal recorder. Observation log, day 184 of new trade route operations. Human crews continue to waste significant time on redundant safety measures. Economic impact of their outdated procedures reduces station efficiency by an estimated 12%. Wilson nodded in agreement. "We should consider charging humans extra fees for their extended docking times." Other species manage their business quickly and professionally. The Resilient finally completed its cargo transfer after 4 hours. As the human ship prepared to depart, Tom Evans submitted his detailed reports to the station's computer systems. The documents included atmospheric readings, cargo manifest verifications, equipment status checks, and crew health assessments. Wilson's assistant brought him the human reports on a data pad. "Captain Evans has filed another comprehensive safety analysis. 47 pages documenting conditions that all other species handle without documentation." Wilson scrolled through the human data with obvious boredom. Air quality normal, radiation levels acceptable, cargo contamination negative, equipment functioning properly, the same information our automated systems provide in 30 seconds. The humans also request permission to share their safety data with other ships, Dr. Logic reported. They believe their detailed scans might be useful to other crews. Both aliens laughed at this suggestion. Wilson deleted the human reports without reading them completely. No species that has mastered faster-than-light travel needs advice from humans about safety. File this under paranoid human behavior and forget about it. As the Resilient departed, 3 more alien vessels arrived almost simultaneously. A Vorthak research ship called Scientific Progress docked without any environmental scans. A Hexari trader named Golden Prophet began unloading exotic materials from a newly discovered world without quarantine procedures. A Krallen military transport called Warrior's Pride connected directly to station power without checking for system compatibility. All 3 ships completed their business in under an hour. Their crews worked with confidence born from months of successful operations. The streamlined procedures that the Galactic Council had approved were proving their worth every day. Wilson updated his efficiency reports with satisfaction. The new trade route was generating record profits for the Hexari Commercial Authority. Other species were equally pleased with the improved system. Kramel military leaders praised the route's strategic value. Vorthak scientists celebrated the increased flow of research materials from distant worlds. Only the humans continued their slow, careful approach to space travel. Their ships were often called turtle boats by other crews. Station workers would place bets on how long human cargo procedures would take. The phrase human speed became galactic slang for unnecessary delays. Dr. Logic published research papers about human behavior that were widely read throughout the galaxy. His theories about human evolutionary psychology became accepted science among advanced species. The consensus was clear. Humans were simply too primitive to understand that modern technology had made their excessive caution obsolete. As the day shift ended at Meridian Hub, Wilson looked out at the busy space lanes with pride. Dozens of ships moved efficiently between stars, carrying goods and materials that kept the galactic economy running smoothly. The new trade route represented the triumph of advanced thinking over primitive fear. Wilson had no way of knowing that several ships had already begun experiencing minor technical problems. Equipment failures were dismissed as routine maintenance issues. Unusual readings were explained away as calibration errors. Small incidents were forgotten as quickly as they occurred. The galaxy's advanced civilizations were confident that their superior technology and rational thinking had eliminated the dangers that humans feared. They had no reason to suspect that the universe might have other plans. The emergency repair bay of Meridian Hub had been busier than usual over the past few weeks. Chief Engineer Miller watched another Vorthak science vessel dock for unexpected maintenance, the third one this month. The ship, Logical Discovery, had been running perfectly until 2 days ago when its navigation system started giving false readings and the life support began making strange noises. Dr. Reason, the ship's captain, emerged from the docking tube looking frustrated. His 4 eyes blinked rapidly, a sign of stress among his species. Chief Miller, our ship's computer systems are experiencing cascading failures. The problem started after we collected samples from the Kepler system. Miller pulled up the maintenance records on his tablet. Let me see. Yes, you picked up some mineral specimens from that new mining world. Did you run contamination scans on the materials? Of course not, Dr. Reason replied. Our sensors showed the samples were inert rock formations. Advanced Vorthak science does not require primitive scanning procedures for simple geological specimens. 3 docking bays away, a Kralin military transport called Iron Strength was having its own problems. The ship's power grid had been surging unpredictably for 5 days, ever since they installed new energy cells purchased from a Hexari merchant. Captain Blade and his warrior crew stood around the ship, arguing about what might be wrong. The power cells are clearly defective, Blade growled to his engineering team. Hexari merchants sold us faulty equipment. His chief technician, Warrior Sharp, disagreed. Sir, the energy cells test normally when isolated. The problem seems to be in how they interact with our ship's systems. Perhaps we should have tested compatibility before installation. Blade struck his fist against the ship's hull. Testing is for weak species that doubt their equipment. Kralin technology is superior. The fault must be in the Hexari products. Meanwhile, in the commercial sector, Hexari merchant Captain Gold was dealing with his own crisis. His cargo ship, Fast Profit, was loaded with exotic foods from a newly discovered agricultural world, but half the shipment had somehow become contaminated during transport. The valuable alien fruits were rotting despite being stored and sealed. Containers.Gold's assistant, Trader Silver, reviewed the shipping records with growing concern. Captain, the contamination seems to have started after we bypassed the biological quarantine station. We saved 12 hours by going directly to the processing facility. Quarantine procedures are human paranoia, Gold insisted. Our sensors detected no harmful organisms. The contamination must have happened at the destination facility. Back in the repair bay, Miller was reviewing incident reports that had been piling up over the past month. Similar problems were occurring throughout the trade route. Vorthak ships were experiencing equipment failures after collecting materials from uncharted worlds. Kralin vessels were having power system problems after installing new technologies, without compatibility testing. Hexari merchants were losing cargo to contamination and spoilage. None of the alien captains seemed to recognize any pattern in these incidents. Each group blamed external factors, defective products, sabotage, statistical anomalies, or simple bad luck. Miller had noticed something else, though. The human ships using the trade route were not experiencing any of these problems. Tom Evans brought the Resilient in for routine maintenance that afternoon. Miller watched the human crew go through their standard post-journey procedures. They carefully scanned every piece of equipment, tested all systems multiple times, and documented everything in detailed reports. "Captain Evans," Miller called, out. "Have you had any technical problems during your recent runs?" Tom looked up from his checklist. "Nothing serious, Chief. We had some minor contamination alerts when we passed through the Kepler system, but our isolation protocols contained it. Also detected some unusual energy signatures from a Hexari merchant ship, but our shielding handled it fine." Miller was intrigued. "Contamination alerts? Energy signatures? Can you show me your data?" Tom pulled out his ship's comprehensive sensor, logs. The records showed detailed scans of every system they had passed through, every ship they had encountered, and every piece of cargo they had handled. The data revealed potential hazards that other species were ignoring completely. "We detected biological contamination on several mineral samples from Kepler-7, Tom explained. "The organisms were dormant, but could become active under certain conditions. We also measured energy field interactions that could cause power surges in older ship designs." Miller compared this information to the problems other ships were having. The patterns matched perfectly. Vorthak ships collecting samples from Kepler-7 were experiencing system failures. Kralin vessels using energy-intensive systems were having power problems. The biological contamination the humans detected could explain the Hexari food spoilage. "Captain Evans, would you be willing to share this data with other ships? It might help prevent more incidents." Tom nodded immediately. "Of course. We have been trying to share our safety information with other crews, but most of them consider it unnecessary human paranoia." That evening, Miller submitted a formal incident report to Station Master Wilson. The report included Tom's sensor data and suggested that other ships might benefit from following human scanning procedures. Wilson reviewed the document with Dr. Logic, who provided scientific analysis. Chief Miller's report suggests that human safety procedures might have practical value, Wilson admitted reluctantly. "However, implementing such measures would significantly reduce our operational efficiency." Dr. Logic studied the data with his multiple eyes. "The correlation between human warnings and subsequent incidents is statistically significant. However, the absolute number of incidents remains low. From a cost-benefit analysis, the economic impact of human procedures outweighs the risk reduction." Wilson made his decision quickly. "We will note these incidents in our records but maintain current operational procedures. A few minor technical problems do not justify returning to primitive human methods." The next morning brought news of more incidents. A Vorthak research station reported strange equipment behavior after installing devices purchased from multiple different worlds. 2 Kralin patrol ships experienced simultaneous power failures while traveling in formation. A Hexari trading post discovered that several different cargo shipments had contaminated each other during storage. Dr. Reason returned to the repair bay with logical discovery, which was now experiencing even more severe problems. The ship's computer systems were giving increasingly erratic readings, and several crew members had reported feeling unwell. Chief Miller, Dr. Reason said. Our problems are getting worse instead of better. We may need to consider unusual solutions. Miller pulled up Tom Evans' contact information. Dr. Reason, there is a human captain who might be able to help. His ship has been operating in the same areas without any problems. Dr. Reason's eyes blinked rapidly. A human? Chief Miller, surely you do not expect an advanced Vorthak scientist to accept assistance from a primitive species? Doctor, your ship is getting worse every day. Maybe it is time to consider that the humans might know something useful. Dr. Reason stood silently for several minutes, his pride warring with his growing desperation. Finally, he spoke in a quiet voice. Very well, contact this human captain. But I want it clearly understood that this is merely a consultation, not an admission that human methods have value. Miller smiled as he placed the call to the resilient. He had a feeling that Dr. Reason was about to learn something important, about the difference between knowledge and wisdom. The galaxy's advanced civilizations were discovering that confidence without caution could be a very dangerous combination. Around the station, more alien ships were arriving with technical problems. Contaminated cargo and frustrated crews. The cracks in the system were growing wider, but most species still refused to admit that anything was fundamentally wrong with their approach. They preferred to blame bad luck rather than question their own assumptions about safety and risk. The stage was being set for something much worse than minor technical difficulties. The warning klaxons screaming throughout Meridian Hub could be heard even in the deepest sections of the station. Emergency lights flashed red as automated systems broadcast urgent messages in dozens of alien languages. Station Master Wilson ran through the corridors toward the command center, his golden robes streaming behind him as he tried to make sense of the chaos erupting around him. In the main control room, dozens of technicians worked frantically at their stations. Holographic displays showed the positions of ships throughout the intersystem trade route, and far too many of them were flashing warning colors. Chief Engineer Miller was already at the central console, his face grim as he coordinated emergency responses. "What is our situation, Chief?" Wilson demanded as he burst into the control room. Miller pointed at the main display screen. "Sir, we have multiple catastrophic failures happening simultaneously. The Hexari megafreighter Golden Success went dark 3 hours ago. Long-range sensors show the ship drifting without power. All communication attempts have failed." Wilson felt ice in his stomach. Golden Success was the largest cargo vessel in the Hexari fleet, carrying experimental biotechnology worth billions of credits. The ship's crew numbered over 800 beings from various species. "There is more, sir," Miller continued. "Battle Group 7 of the Kralin Navy is experiencing cascading system failures. Their flagship, Eternal Victory, and 3 escort vessels have lost main power. They are drifting toward the Rigel star system with no way to alter course. Dr. Logic appeared at Wilson's shoulder, his 4 eyes wide with shock. "Station Master, we are also receiving distress signals from Research Station Alpha in the central hub. The Vorthak scientists report that their dimensional research equipment is malfunctioning. They are detecting space-time anomalies that are growing larger." Wilson stared at the displays in disbelief. After months of smooth operations, 3 major disasters were happening at once. "How is this possible? Our systems have been working perfectly." Before anyone could answer, the communications station crackled to life with a weak transmission. The voice was barely audible through heavy static, but they could make out words in the Hexari trade language. "This is Captain Golden Success. Crew is dying. Something in the cargo. Spreading through ship. Environmental systems. Failed." The transmission cut off completely. Miller tried to re-establish contact, but the ship's communications remained silent. On the scanner displays, Golden Success continued its slow drift through space, a massive tomb carrying hundreds of beings. Warrior Commander Axe's voice came through on the military emergency channel. "Meridian Hub. This is Battle Group 7. We have lost all primary systems. Our ships are connected by power-sharing cables, but the feedback is causing more failures. We need immediate assistance. Wilson grabbed the microphone. Commander Axe, we are dispatching rescue vessels immediately. Can you explain what caused the system failures? Unknown Station Master. The problem started when we connected our ships for joint operations. Our engineers said it would increase efficiency, but instead, it created some kind of cascade effect. Each ship's failure is causing problems in the others. Dr. Logic was studying the technical readouts from battle. Group 7, Station Master, the Kralin ships are experiencing exactly the type of power feedback that human redundancy protocols were designed to prevent. Their interconnected systems have no isolation barriers. Before Wilson could respond, another alarm sounded. Dr. Quantum's panicked voice echoed through the station's communication system from Research Station Alpha. Meridian Hub, we have an emergency. Our dimensional research has torn a hole in space-time. Reality is becoming unstable around the station. The anomaly is expanding and will reach your position within hours. Through the command center's windows, Wilson could see space itself beginning to shimmer and warp in the distance. Stars were blinking out of existence and reappearing in wrong positions. The fabric of reality looked like water with stones thrown into it, creating expanding ripples that distorted everything they touched. Dr. Quantum, shut down your research immediately, Wilson ordered. We cannot. The safety systems were never installed because our calculations showed they were unnecessary. The reaction is feeding on itself and growing stronger. We have no way to contain the dimensional breach. Miller was checking the locations of all ships in the area. Sir, we have over 200 vessels in the affected zone. Most of them will be unable to evacuate in time. Wilson felt the weight of responsibility crushing down on him. Thousands of lives were at stake because the Galactic Council had rejected human safety protocols. The very procedures they had mocked as primitive paranoia might have prevented all three disasters. Chief Miller, what ships do we have available for rescue operations? Miller scrolled through the active vessel registry. Sir, most of our ships are experiencing various technical problems related to the recent incidents. We have perhaps a dozen fully operational vessels available. What about human ships? Miller highlighted several green indicators on the display. The human vessels Resilient, Guardian, and Protector are all fully operational, sir. They report no technical problems, despite operating in the same areas as the failed ships. Wilson stared at the green dots representing human vessels. After months of considering them slow and inefficient, they were now the only ships capable of mounting rescue operations. Contact Captain Evans immediately. We need all available human ships for emergency response. Tom Evans's voice came through the communication system within minutes. Meridian Hub, this is Captain Evans aboard Resilient. We have been monitoring the situation and are standing by to assist. Captain Evans, we have multiple disasters occurring simultaneously. Can your ships handle large-scale rescue operations? Station. Master, human vessels are equipped with full emergency response capabilities. We have medical facilities, environmental suits for all crew members, and isolation chambers for contamination containment. We can begin rescue operations immediately. Doctor. Logic leaned toward Wilson. Station Master, perhaps we should reconsider human safety protocols. Their ships seem remarkably well prepared for exactly these types of emergencies. Wilson nodded reluctantly. Captain Evans, what do you need from us? Sir, we need complete cooperation from all species. Our rescue procedures may seem slow and overly cautious, but they are designed to keep everyone alive. We cannot afford to take shortcuts. As the human ships moved into action, their methodical approach became clear. Instead of rushing directly to the disaster zones, they established secure communication networks, coordinated with each other to avoid conflicts, and carefully planned their rescue routes to minimize exposure to the expanding dangers. The Resilient approached golden success, wearing full environmental protection. Tom Evans's crew used remote scanners to analyze the situation before making physical contact. They detected massive biological contamination throughout the Hexari ship, exactly the type of threat that human quarantine procedures were designed to handle. Meridian Hub, this is resilient, Tom reported. The Hexari ship contains an aggressive alien pathogen that has overwhelmed their environmental systems. We are deploying full biological containment protocols and will attempt to evacuate survivors. Meanwhile, the Guardian moved toward the drifting Kralin battle group. Captain Stone and her crew used their ship's multiple independent power systems to provide emergency energy to the Kralin vessels, without creating the feedback loops that had caused the original problems. Battle Group 7, this is Captain. Stone aboard Guardian. We are going to transfer power to your ships using isolated connection protocols. Please do not attempt to interconnect your systems with ours. Commander Axe's pride warred with his desperation. Human Captain, Kralin warriors do not require assistance from inferior species. Commander, your warriors will be dead in 6 hours if you do not accept our help. Your choice. After a long pause, Axe responded. Very well. Proceed with your rescue operations. The Protector faced the most dangerous mission, approaching Research Station Alpha where reality itself was becoming unstable. Captain West had equipped her ship with experimental reality anchoring technology that humans had developed based on their understanding that the universe was fundamentally hostile to life. Meridian Hub, this is Protector. We are deploying reality stabilization fields around Research Station Alpha. Our containment protocols should slow the expansion of the dimensional breach. As the hours passed, the human ships worked with mechanical precision. They evacuated survivors from Golden Success using full biological isolation procedures, preventing the pathogen from spreading to rescue vessels. They provided stable power to the Kralin ships using redundant safety systems that prevented cascade failures. They contained the dimensional breach using reality anchors that other species had considered unnecessary paranoia. Wilson watched the rescue operations from the command center, feeling a mixture of gratitude and shame. The humans were saving thousands of lives using exactly the safety procedures that the Galactic Council had rejected as primitive fear. Dr. Logic was frantically analyzing the data from all 3 disasters. Station Master, the pattern is clear. Each catastrophe occurred because we ignored specific human safety recommendations. The biological contamination could have been prevented with proper quarantine protocols. The power failures resulted from inadequate system isolation. The dimensional breach happened because we did not install the reality stabilization equipment that humans suggested. As the reality distortions continued expanding despite the human containment efforts, Tom Evans contacted the station with grim news. Meridian Hub, we have stabilized the immediate area, but the dimensional breach is beyond our ability to fully contain. The entire trade route may need to be evacuated. Wilson looked at the displays showing hundreds of ships and stations throughout the affected region. Without human safety protocols, none of them were prepared for this level of emergency. The galaxy's most advanced civilizations were helpless in the face of dangers that humans had been planning for all along. Captain Evans, what would you need to mount a full evacuation? Sir, we would need every human ship in the sector and complete authority to implement emergency protocols. Other species would have to follow our procedures exactly, even if they seem excessive or inefficient. Wilson closed his eyes, knowing that he was about to admit that the Galactic Council had been catastrophically wrong. Captain Evans, you have full authority. Save as many lives as you can. The breaking point had arrived, and only the species that everyone had mocked for being too cautious possessed the tools and knowledge necessary to prevent complete catastrophe. 3 weeks after the disasters began, the emergency refugee camp on Haven Station buzzed with quiet activity. Survivors from dozens of different species worked alongside human rescue workers, many still wearing the environmental suits that had saved their lives. The massive station had been rapidly converted from a minor outpost into the largest refugee center in galactic history. Ambassador David Reed walked through the medical bay, checking on patients who were recovering from various forms of contamination and exposure. Hexari merchants who had never worn protective gear sat beside Kralin warriors learning to operate human breathing apparatus. Vorthak scientists studied human medical equipment with newfound respect, trying to understand how such primitive devices could be so effective. Dr. Reason sat on a medical bed, no longer the confident scientist who had dismissed human caution months ago. His ship, Logical Discovery, had been completely destroyed in the dimensional collapse, along with most of his research. He looked up as David approached. "Ambassador Reed, I owe you an apology. My species prides itself on logical thinking, but we failed to consider that our logic might be incomplete." David sat down beside the Vorthak scientist. "Dr. Reason, there is no shame in learning from experience. Humans have made countless mistakes throughout our history. The difference is that we write down what went wrong and try not to repeat it." Across the station, Captain Tom Evans was coordinating the ongoing rescue operations from the command center. His ship, Resilient, had become the flagship of the largest evacuation effort in galactic history. Human vessels continued pulling survivors from damaged ships and collapsing stations throughout the affected region. General Brutok entered the command center, walking with difficulty due to injuries sustained when his flagship lost life support. The proud Kralin warrior had spent days on a human medical ship, kept alive by the same redundant systems he had once mocked. "Captain Evans," Brutok said quietly, "I must speak with you about what happened to my battle group." Tom looked up from his coordination displays. "General, how can I help you?" "My engineers have analyzed the cascade failures that destroyed our ships. The interconnected power systems that we thought would make us stronger actually made us vulnerable. If we had followed human isolation protocols, my warriors would still be alive." Tom nodded respectfully. "General, system redundancy and isolation barriers may seem like waste, but they exist because humans have learned that single points of failure can destroy everything. We have seen entire cities lost because one safety system was not backed up properly." Brutok's scarred face showed confusion. "But your species survived these disasters. How did you learn these lessons without destroying yourselves?" "General, we almost did destroy ourselves many times. We learned because some humans died so that others could live and remember. Every safety protocol we follow was written with the blood of people who made mistakes before us." In the refugee center's main hall, Station Master Wilson was meeting with representatives from across the galaxy. The Galactic Council had called an emergency session to address the catastrophic failures of the new trade route. Species that had once dismissed human advice now hung on every word from human safety experts. Trade Minister Ross approached Wilson with reports from the commercial sector. "Station Master, we have lost over 60% of our merchant fleet. The economic damage will take decades to repair. How did we fail to see these dangers?" Wilson had been asking himself the same question for weeks. "Minister Ross, I think we confused advanced technology with advanced wisdom. We believed that our scientific knowledge made us immune to the basic laws of physics and biology that humans respect." Dr. Logic joined their conversation, carrying a thick folder of analysis reports. "I have been studying human safety protocols in detail. Their procedures are not based on fear as we assumed. They are based on mathematical probability calculations that account for cascading failure scenarios we never considered." Ambassador David stood up to address the assembled delegates. The hall fell silent as beings from across the galaxy waited to hear from the species they had once considered primitive. "Friends, we do not take pleasure in being right about these dangers. Every human safety protocol exists because somewhere in our history, people died when we ignored a risk that seemed unlikely. We learn to prepare for disasters not because we are afraid, but because we love life enough to protect it properly. Dr. Quantum, one of the few Vorthak scientists to survive the dimensional breach, raised his hand. Ambassador Reed, your species has saved thousands of lives using methods we rejected. How can we learn to think as humans do about safety? David smiled sadly. Dr. Quantum, human thinking about safety comes from accepting a difficult truth. The universe does not care about our intelligence, our technology, or our pride. Space is cold, radiation is deadly, biology can be hostile, and physics has no mercy for beings who ignore its laws. General Brutok stood up slowly. Ambassador, Kralin culture celebrates courage in the face of danger. We believed that acknowledging risk was cowardice. General, true courage is not ignoring danger. True courage is facing danger while taking every reasonable precaution to protect the people depending on you. The bravest humans are often the ones who are most careful because they understand what they have to lose. Captain Gold of the Hexari. Merchants had been listening quietly. His cargo empire was in ruins, destroyed by his own refusal to implement proper safety measures. Ambassador Reed, my people value efficiency above all else. We saw your protocols as wasteful. Captain Gold, efficiency without safety is not efficient at all when it leads to total loss. Human protocols may seem slow, but they are designed to ensure that operations can continue even when unexpected problems occur. Real efficiency means being able to operate reliably for years, not just moving fast for a few months. Wilson stood to make an announcement. The Galactic Council has voted unanimously to adopt human safety protocols for all future space operations. We are also establishing the Human Safety Advisory Board to help all species implement proper risk management procedures. The hall erupted in agreement sounds from dozens of species. Clicking, humming, and electronic beeps all conveyed the same message: the galaxy was ready to learn from human experience. Tom Evans received word that the last survivors had been evacuated from the disaster zone. His ships had saved over 15,000 lives using the same careful procedures that aliens had once mocked. As he prepared his final report, he reflected on the cost of the galaxy's hard-learned lesson. David Reed began his closing address by pulling out a worn book from his briefcase. This contains the names of every human who died in space disasters before we learned proper safety procedures. The explosion of the Mars transport, the contamination of Luna Base, the loss of the Deep Space Explorer ship Horizon, hundreds of other incidents where people died because we were not careful enough. He opened the book and began reading names. Lieutenant Sarah Thompson, who died when backup life support failed. Dr. Michael Chang, killed by biological contamination that could have been prevented with proper quarantine. Engineer Maria Santos, lost when a power surge destroyed her ship's navigation systems. The hall remained completely silent as David continued reading. Name after name, each representing a lesson learned through tragedy. Alien delegates who had laughed at human caution now understood that every safety protocol represented real people who had died to teach those lessons. These people died so that humans could learn to survive in space. Their sacrifice taught us that the universe is not forgiving of overconfidence. Now their lessons have saved thousands of lives from across the galaxy. I hope their deaths finally have meaning beyond our own species. As David closed the book, Dr. Reason approached him with tears in his 4 eyes. Ambassador, I understand now why humans seem afraid of everything. You are not afraid. You are respectful of dangers that killed your people before you learned to prepare properly. David nodded. Doctor, humans learned that there is no shame in being careful, only in being careless with the lives of others. The universe taught us this lesson through pain, but it does not have to teach it to others the same way. The refugee camps slowly began to empty as survivors were relocated to safe stations throughout the galaxy. Human ships continued their methodical rescue operations, following the same careful procedures that had once been dismissed as primitive paranoia. The galaxy had learned at terrible cost why Earth's rules existed and why they mattered. In his final report to Earth Command, David wrote, "The galaxy now understands that human safety protocols are not signs of weakness, but wisdom earned through bitter experience. Perhaps now other species will learn from our mistakes instead of repeating them. The universe is dangerous enough without ignoring the lessons it has already taught us." The trade route was eventually rebuilt, but this time it followed human safety standards. Every ship carried redundant life support. Every cargo shipment underwent proper quarantine. Every system included isolation barriers and emergency protocols. The galaxy moved more slowly, but it moved safely, and that made all the difference between thriving and merely surviving in the hostile vastness of space.